this very well.
I will introduce our guest.
All right,
I'm
wonderful.
I'm just building the suspense.
Building
right?
the anticipation. Who is it? Who could
So
it be?
today on the exit interview, you have none other than the wonderful, talented, illustrious Dr. Asia Lyons.
Dr. Asia
Hi.
Lyons.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Dr. Asia.
How's it going?
Also, you didn't mention that Dr. Asia Lyons is also a recently minted PhD and the founder of Lyons Educational Consulting, which is doing some great work, not only around the city of Denver, not only around the state of Colorado, but across the country. So you should hit her up because there's really great work there. So we've talked a little bit about the origin story, Asia, going all the way back a few years to when our paths first crossed through the Colorado Education Association, and we'll get to that story in just a little bit. But we are going to essentially adopt. Oh, also Asia Lyons, creator of the Exit Interview, this very podcast.
Oh,
That's right.
yes, yes, I am.
People are like, "Why is this meta? This doesn't seem meta." It's meta, because we're kind of taking that. And Kev, one thing I want to say, and just kind of framing this before we get into this, I was talking to Asia before you arrived a little bit late, and I was talking about in my I'm taking a qualitative research class right now, and there's this emphasis on critical reflexivity, which is asking the question of what the researcher themselves bring to the research. And so I think this is a really amazing opportunity for the audience, but also for Asia to, kind of consider what it is that she's bringing into this work on the Exit Interview podcast. So our paths crossed a couple of different times. We finally were able to get something together a couple of years ago when we created this podcast, the Exit Interview, together. We'll start with the same format that you all use when you bring on your guest. What is it that brought you into education as a teacher? Did you always want to be a teacher? What was that initial path into education like for you?
Yeah, thanks for asking the question I ask other people.
Thanks for asking my question to me.
It's
good to
your
be on my own
question.
show. It's always good to be on my own show. Yeah. Okay. So, basically, in high school, I was leaving high school, graduating, and my dad really wanted me to go into engineering. He talked about, like, you're going to be an engineer. Black women, there are not a lot of Black women engineering. And just for reference, folks, this was 2000. So I graduated from high school in 2000. And so he's like, you're going to go to engineering school. And I'd applied to go to Xavier University in New Orleans to go into psychology. And he's like, no, people don't respect HBCUs. You won't be able to get a job. And so I applied for Michigan Tech University to go into chemical engineering. And I was accepted to both. And to please my father, which at the age of 40, now we know that's never a good idea to try to please someone else instead of taking care of yourself. I went to engineering school, did not do well. And for lots of reasons, kind of thinking back on it, the step between my Detroit Public School education and what I needed to be successful in college in general, the step was just too large, right? I didn't have enough education to be college ready. And so I flunked out of college. In my second year, I had a 1.95 GPA, flunked out. Yeah. And I came home, and I remember I was sitting in my bathroom, my house, and I opened a letter, and I knew what it was going to say. Like, you can come back when you get your shit together, right? So I was just panicked, but I knew that I had to go to college. Like, there's no, the factory had dried up. All these things in Detroit nothing's there for me except for going to school. So I was like, okay, what can I do? And the bus route, because I didn't have a car, the bus route went past a community college. And so I was like, okay, I'll just enroll at the community college. So I went to Henry Ford Community College. And for my audience, I just showed them my associate's degree before we got on today, because I dug it out of the attic because I'm going to frame it. And it's literally beautiful. It's half the size of a sheet of paper. I don't even know why they bothered, but I was in community college, And I had signed up, and I was doing work study at a daycare center. And after, I was working there a little bit, and this is 0 to 3-year-olds or 1 to 3-ish, 4-ish year olds. A woman that worked there, her name was Jennifer. She said, "I think that you should be a teacher." Right. And at that time, when I was in the work study, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Had convinced myself maybe business. That felt really interesting. But I just knew I had to be in school. And so I went home and I was like, I remember like crying and praying, like, God, if this is real, if this is what I'm supposed to do, just tell me something. And then the next day, I dropped out of my business classes and I enrolled in pre-education courses. So just kind of went there. The next stop on the bus route was the University of Michigan's Dearborn campus. So I was like, okay, well, after I'm finished.
You're like, this is convenient. I'll stay on the bus a couple minutes longer. And here we are.
And that's it. Yeah. And so I went there, went into, took the bus, finished school, went to the next bus route over, finished at University of Michigan, Dearborn. My husband and I, at the time, he's my boyfriend at the time, there were schools closing left and right in Detroit public schools when I was finishing my bachelor's. He's like, let's try Denver. He had been out here as working for Northwest Airlines before it became Delta. He's like, let's go, let's just try it. And so I applied for every school district that I mean, you don't know, from a different state, the St. Rain, Denver Public, Aurora Public, Cherry Creek, whatever. Right. I didn't really care, right? So that was it. Kind of first school district that called me, only school district that called me, only school district that interviewed me was Cherry Creek Schools. And that was it. I started teaching at Sunrise Elementary. Shout out for Sunrise. I have Sunrise pride.
Shout out to Sunrise.
2006. And that was it. 12 years of teaching.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. It's just I just get interested in people's origin stories in teaching, because I feel like, and Kevin and I have talked about this a lot with our guests on Two Dope Teachers, that oftentimes our white counterparts are like, I always knew I wanted to be a teacher, and school is a safe place for me. And we hear this from some people of color as well, but by and large, that's how it is. And so many of us, there's like this defining moment that that leads us in this direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, it was obviously not that. And I don't know, it wasn't like I can save children, or I can do this thing. It just felt like it made sense. I've only had 2 times in my life, and we'll probably get into the second time later, but 2 times where it was like lightning. Like I just knew, like, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. So, and I love teaching. I love working with kids. I love everything about it. Was just like, it was a vibe. Yeah. Right. I love being the favorite teacher. Right. That's so good for my ego. Right. To be the favorite teacher of so many kids. So yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And I never knew, AJ. I learned something new about you. I was one of those people who got that letter after their first year of college. So I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah. And I think, it's wild. And I just told my dad, I am 40 years old, folks. I just told my dad in the last 3 years, I flunked out of college, right?
Yeah.
This is a man who literally, I'm going to send this to him when we drop it. So, hey, Daddy, he literally asked me in my second year of my doctoral program what my report card looked like. Like, how's those grades? I'm like, how are those grades? Right?
Keep it up.
So funny.
That's the standard. That's the standard. Yeah. There we go. That doesn't surprise me. Well, Asia, tell us, so you've given us your educational journey. Tell us about your experiences. So you came in as an elementary teacher. How long did you do that for?
I taught in Sunrise for 6 years.
6 years.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then, so after Sunrise, where'd you go next?
So after Sunrise, I went to Sky Vista Middle School, which is also in CCSD, Cherry Creek School District. And I taught 6th grade for 6 years. In the 6th grade, I taught math. And I also taught a social justice course. And it wasn't social justice when I first started. When I first started, the principal asked me to just teach anything I wanted to teach to students because they had a group of students who'll be going to like GT classes, and a group of students who'll be going to get some supports. And there was a group in the middle, I guess you could say, that didn't have any place to go. So he's like, well, figure something out. So it was like, I started off with, okay, let's do math and art. So math and origami, and math and sports, and financial literacy. And it kind of moved towards teaching social justice in my last 2 years at the school. I made that decision.
Yeah. And how'd you shift? Tell us about that. Because, you know, social justice, as you know, Asia and Gerardo, is a really has become a very controversial term as we, and, you know, it's ironic as we approach Dr. King's holiday, that's an idea such as social justice, societal justice is controversial. But Asia, tell us about why you started you know, moving into social justice away from math and that engineering stuff that your dad was so, you know, really keen on.
Yeah. So let's see. If I remember correctly, the year before, I had gone to a training that the district used to put on, or if they still do. It was called Beyond Diversity. And then Beyond Diversity, and it's put on, like, the trainers go to Courageous Conversations About Race, Lynn Singleton's organization. They get trained, they come back, and they train folks throughout the school district who come in for a 2-day professional development. So I went, and it just, like, the scales fell off my eyes, right? And before that, I'm like, you know, this is so great. This is so wonderful. And really, I mean, I understood racism. I'm not stupid, right? Mm-hmm. But there was like a lot of things that I did not understand, and that professional development really helped me to start reading more, open my eyes more. And then I feel like I had just this idea, like, well, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to try out teaching my students social justice. And specifically, I guess Dr. Mackey, shout out to her, would talk about like YPAR, this being YPAR. But I said, I'll have the students decide like which topics in social justice they wanted to learn, because a lot of folks may be thinking, oh, it's specifically race, or specifically like some particular topic that I had in mind. But the students, just because of the time we were living in, and mind you, this is 2016 at the time, or 15, 16-ish, they understood and saw a lot of things that were happening from like the news, and their families having conversations, and classmates. So that went really well the first year, at least. So and the administration liked it, the school students liked it, they learned a lot. So it was really probably the training from the school district itself that got my fire going.
That's such an interesting it's so interesting for me to hear this, because so first, they knew what you were teaching. Right? They knew that the curriculum was social justice and the practice was student voice, right? So they knew this. And, you know, as I've kind of done a little bit of research around these issues that are forcing Black and brown teachers out of education, oftentimes it's like someone figured out what they were doing and it was just unacceptable, right? And so I just want to put a pin in that. They knew what you were about, and they knew what you were doing. So at some point, things go south.
Yeah.
And I want to zoom back as the producer of this show and say that this is the pattern that Exit Interview has documented over the last two plus seasons, is that a Black teacher, often a Black woman teacher, comes into teaching, and everybody's excited for what she brings. Everybody's excited because she's a great teacher. And then at some point, the relationship sours, and then it just gets real ugly. So would you share with us how things soured between you and not just at school, but your career as a classroom teacher?
Yeah. So first year, like I said, went really well. And to give the audience like some context about how the work was like student led, is that as a part of the curriculum, I had the students vote across my 3 or 4 classrooms about the topics they wanted to learn. And they would come up with a list. I asked them, like, think about what's happening in your community, what you're hearing in the news, and let's list all the issues, right? So the board would be full of, I'm making this number up at this point, but like 15 different topics, right? Animal cruelty, homelessness, racism, sexism, like everything. And of course, 6th graders love, animal cruelty, save the animals. Yeah. And so they would, across the classes, vote, 150 of them or so, and then we would pick the top 4, right? Or 5 or whatever. And then I'd go about teaching them. Mm-hmm. The second year that I was teaching that class was the year that Trump was elected.
Yes.
And it changed so much about the ballsiness of my white students' parents.
Yeah.
I remember before we even really got started with the curriculum in the class, going and being in back to school night, and I had all my protest posters up from, and I could see them looking around, and I was thinking, it's gonna be a long semester. Yeah. And so I told them what we're up to, what we're learning, what the kids had voted on. So they were well aware. By this time, we were down the road a little bit because back to school night is not the first night of school.
No.
And we had some different folks coming into the school. I had a guest speaker come in and speak to the students about Indigenous experiences and his experience here in the Denver public school system. And that went totally fine. Yep. Had a second, and I'm really I'm not telling all the story because there's just so many pieces, and it's just been a while, right? But between then, there's still these like low rumblings that something folks are not happy. And I had a second guest speaker come in, and she talked about the ways that she experienced discrimination in the justice system, the ways that she talked about loving our Muslim community members and things like that. And I had a student go home and tell his mom like how excited he was. And I guess he had did a selfie with the person, and the mom looked her up. And at the time that she was a guest speaker in my class, she was accused of, not convicted of, accused of using THC to make soaps. Yeah. And she had enough to be a seller. And so that she was under investigation, and under investigation must have meant that she was guilty.
Right.
And so that's when it got going for me, where like it's bad.
So ironic today too. It's so ironic in 2023 in Denver. Go ahead though. Sorry.
No. And so the first like wave of emails, hey, you had this convicted person, not true, in the class talking about drugs, talking about Muslims, and it just kept going. And at first, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not good. But I emailed them, no, this is not true. This is what happened. And it just kept going, right? To a point where I was experiencing mobbing, right? Yeah. So a group of parents got together at the time, I think it was GroupMe, it was fairly new. I think it was GroupMe. And they had a group against me. And I found out because one of my students' moms was in the group, and she was screenshotting all their conversations and sending them to me. Ooh. Right? Yeah. She was like, receipts. This is happening.
All right.
Yeah, now, receipts.
Here's where we pause, and Asia's gonna read some of the screenshots.
Listen, go pull my record. I put every screenshot in my record before I left to let people know, like, this is real.
This is what happened.
Yeah. And so I was telling the student, I was telling my principal. At first it was going well. The principal was like, I got you. But what was happening was that students' parents were pulling their kids out of my classroom, and they would just sit in the counselor's office for my class. Right. And I had like 17 students across my classes who were just sitting and not coming to class. And so eventually a couple of things happened. One, the school decided, or the principal or whoever decided to create a class specifically for this group of boys and girls, all white, so that they can have someone else teach besides me. A 7th grade teacher was teaching like less than 17 kids instead of me teaching. So we found the money to pay a teacher extra funds so that, to appease the parents. Cool. Then she says to me, I need you to stop teaching the social justice topic.
All
I
together.
need you to, like, we're done.
We don't stand for social justice at this school.
Yeah. When we mean like excellence and equity, we just mean of other people.
Right? That's right.
Yeah. So I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, just change it to something else. It doesn't matter. We're just not going to do this. And it was interesting because I was thinking, oh my God, my kids who were left, they had already seen their classmates leave. They knew the rumblings because they're students who were in the hallways with them. And they're like, why didn't you come to class? And they tell them, like, my mom said to Mrs. Lyons, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So they knew. And so we were down the line a couple of weeks and it was coming to the semester. And one of my students was like, Mrs. Lyons, I can't wait until we learn about the LGBTQ experience. I'm so excited for our next unit. And I was thinking to myself, I got to tell these kids.
Yeah. And so this was happening over the course of how many weeks? Because you said it had been a couple of weeks. Went from the first time that, one of these Karens complained to this point where you realize you have to tell the students. How long had this been going on? And I'll come back to why this is an important question in a little while.
I want to say it was September to October. Let me see. September to October-ish. Like mid-October, maybe late October. So this is like
a month or
weeks.
more. Like, it's almost like 2
more.
months. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, so she's telling me, like, because this is, you have to change the topic. My students are still.
I got you. I got you. I don't got you.
I don't got you. Right. So, and I'm like, okay. And so I told my students, I said, you know what, everybody, I decided like the next day to start letting them know, like, we're going to need to change the topic to something. I'll figure out what it was going to be and, whatever. So first period comes, hey, everyone, we have some, we're going to have to change the curriculum. And I'm trying my best to be as tactful as possible, right?
Yeah.
But we're going to have to change the subject. I don't know what we're going to learn yet, which I did because they asked me to teach about like maps and weather and some shit. And I was like, okay. But we're going to do something different. And they're like, what? We're going to change. Why do we have to change? Why do we have to change? And I'm like, it's cool. Don't worry about it. And they started saying like, it's because of those kids who left the classroom. It's because of those parents. Right.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, it doesn't matter. We're just going, it's fine. It's going to be fine. And as I'm talking, they're pulling notebook paper out of their notebook and they're making petitions. And I'm like, okay. Right. And they start like, and I'm seeing it. I'm like, oh, here we go. And they're
like, we know what to do.
They already, because, right.
They've been studying it. They've been studying it.
Right. They've been studying it. Trump is in office. So we're in the year of the protest, right? I think the protester was the person of the year that year. And so they were like pulling the paper out, taping rulers to pieces of paper, bring back social justice class. Wow. I'm like, okay, you all, they go to the next class, second period. Hey, everybody, listen, boop, boop, boop. Same speech. I'm gonna do this and then same situation. They're making protest posts. They're pissed off, right?
We aren't standing for this.
Right, this is bullshit. And so third period comes and they're already like, we know what's going on.
They're like, all right, we already heard the 411. We're organizing.
Right, we're organizing.
Miss, sit down. Miss, sit down. We got this.
Step back.
You're like, y'all passed. You passed.
Right. Congratulations. This is a real world experience.
That's right.
This is what it is. And so third period comes and I email the principal, the vice principal, the counseling department, there's everybody on the first floor and say like, this is what I did. And this is, I believe they're going to protest during lunch.
Yeah.
Transparency. You're being transparent.
You're like, this is
going down.
Yeah. So fourth period, lunch was fourth period. And I'm in my classroom and the way my classroom was, it was in a hallway. And so you could hear and see the lunchroom kind of from where I was. And you could hear kids screaming, bring back social justice class, like at the top of their lungs, right? And it's just chanting and chanting, and there's kids protesting in the office and for the principal's office. It's a whole thing. And I'm thinking, oh my God, right? But again, I'm trying to be tactful. So I'm like, that's good for them. That's what they chose to do. I'm sure it'll be fine. We have a stand-up meeting, which is never good. After lunch, I tell the staff, the 6th grade teachers, and the principal was there. I said, look, I did not tell them to protest. That's, I want you all to know that I'm not trying to like cause any harm or anything to the school. So just to let you know. And as a side note, while this was happening and all these students were leaving my classroom and all this, I had a teacher that I was teaching with. He was a science teacher, and he was teaching the same curriculum.
Oh, wow.
But the teachers didn't, the parents did not come against him.
I'm going to ask you the eternal question. Was he white?
He was a white man.
Yeah, so.
He was a white man. And, what's interesting about that situation is I found out in the group text that he told them he didn't know we were having a guest speaker, that I surprised him. And I never confronted him about that. But the fact that you lied to these folks to save your own face was like really disappointing. But anyway, so I'm just in this by myself. I'm sitting in this library area and I'm journaling at this point. After the stand-up meeting, my kids are still there. Now they're electives. And I'm writing like, I cannot believe this just happened. This is wild. And my principal comes in with a piece of paper and she says, you can have representation if you want it. And I said, but what, I didn't do anything wrong. And she's like, you can have representation if you would like it. You can. And she just kept saying, I said, but I didn't do anything wrong. And she just leaves, right? Thank the Lord that I had enough wherewithal to be in the union at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Because I was hysterical. And I came to the meeting and I'm bawling my eyes out. And they're like, we're going to put you on leave. We need to do an investigation. And I just cannot believe this is happening to me. And the people who had come from district, my principal's boss had come, like these folks had come, and it was just like, they were just staring, like, I don't know. And this is a long story. So if I need to cut this short, just let me know.
You're good. You're good.
Because it does lead up to the point. I was on leave for several weeks. While I was on leave, the parents were still going. They were still doing their thing. Yep. At this point, the screenshots just started to come in and said that they wanted me fired. And before I got put on leave, I told my principal, they want me fired. And she's like, you're being extreme. No way. I was put on leave on a Friday. School district board meeting was like on a Monday. They went to the board meeting and then the news came, who knows why, and said on the news that they wanted me fired at the board meeting. Right? And so my students saw it on the news. And then they saw that I wasn't in school the next day. So they assumed I had been fired.
Wow.
Right? Then they protest and do a walkout. Okay. A silent protest in front of my classroom.
Yep.
And the kids walk out of school. I'm not even in school.
Nope.
Okay. So I'm getting like these grainy photos from my colleagues of my students laying down in front of my classroom. And I'm like, this is bananas, right? I'm like, this is so dope. Good for them. Yeah. I get back off of leave after 2 weeks. They're so excited to see me. And that's when the racial battle fatigue started. Yep. My principal did everything she could from October to May to get me to quit. Right? She would be in my files, looking at my curriculum. She'd just come to my classroom and stand there. I told you all about this when we did when I interviewed with you all, I did Black History Month decorations. I did all the decorations for every History Month. Yeah. And she would take my stuff down. She told me that when I put the Kaepernick poster up for Black History Month, that she didn't know what Kaepernick had to do with Black history.
Okay.
And she just kept it. I got to a place where I couldn't do it. I was hysterical. I didn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I was crying all the time. I was experiencing now what I know is racial battle fatigue.
Yes.
So at the end of the year, I started doing, I think I've told you all this so many times, I went Shawshank Redemption. I just started taking stuff home, taking stuff home, taking stuff home. My desk would be empty. There was nothing in it. It was just a shell of a classroom. On the last day, I just took my ID and threw it in the garbage, turned all my stuff in, and I never went back.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. You know, one of the things that is really clear to me is even all these years later, and you know, after the break, we'll get into, you know, where you're headed now and kind of where you are right now. You know, the emotions are still there. They're still profound. That, you know, you really relive these things. One of the elements of, and you know, you're the one that introduced me to the concept of racial battle fatigue, and it's been really fascinating to have that as a lens as I kind of evaluate what's going on with our Black teachers in this state and in this country. One of the elements is you don't go through racial battle fatigue yourself. It's not like you have COVID and you just have to isolate so you don't get it on anybody, right? Racial battle fatigue impacts your family and it impacts your loved ones and the people around you. Before we go to break, can you talk a little bit about how your family was impacted by what you were going through all these months?
Yeah. So my daughter was fairly young. She's 9 right now. And so I don't know if she was really aware, but I would say that my marriage was on threads.
Yeah.
Right. Like I didn't want to hang out. I didn't want to do anything. I would just come home and I just cry. Yeah. And I'd just be so exhausted. And it wasn't like I was healing because every day I had to go back. Right. Or I felt like I did. Let me say that. Yeah. And so it was just like a new wound. Every time she came into my classroom, every time my coworkers were silent in my oppression, right? Every time that I saw those parents, because they were in the school, right? Trying their best to steal all through that time to get rid of me. And then it was just like nobody wanted to know to address it. Yeah. It was just hard on my family. It was hard on my family. And my husband and I, we look at that now. And at the time he admitted, he was just like, he used to say, just go to work. Just don't even worry about it. And now he understands. Yeah. But at the time, it was just like, he really couldn't have gotten it. And that's not true. Let me back up a little bit. Yeah. Let me back up. I think that's some of the ways that he got to see what I was experiencing is when I was on leave and I could not step foot on school property, he went to the board meeting and he got to hear them talk about me. And he said it was
that's what changes.
Yeah, he was so enraged. Yep. Yeah. He was so enraged and he came home and told me about it. And I think that changed his mind, right? But it's even though the person understands from here, it's not the same. But yeah, he got to see it in full color.
And I think that perspective is so profound. Like it kind of put it in perspective for him. I'm also sure that a big part of how it impacted him was just seeing his partner suffering and not feeling like, and just feeling powerless to do anything about it, and trying to help and trying to be supportive. But what you're fighting is so much bigger than what one person's encouraging words can give.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, folks, we're going to take a break and let you marinate on the Asia's story. And we'll be back. We are back, folks, for our exit interview with Dr. Lyons, our co-host of the exit interview. And we are here with my co-host for the exit interview. And we are here with our special guest co-host for this episode, Gerardo Munoz.
Let's go.
But Asia,
Yay.
tell us a little bit, like, so, your story is powerful because like it's the movie. This the movie. Your ending, like we could all picture you throwing that badge in, like zooming in
Ooh, and
as
the
you walk
music,
away. You know, that's solid. That's
as it
solid.
falls in slow motion.
You know, as we get
All
to
that.
award season, let's put it into the ether. But
like drops like this.
But like as you think about
exactly
your experience, like, and we've talked about this a lot, and I think this is our favorite question on the exit interview. But what would you like educators, admins, unions to know if they want to retain Black educators?
It's funny that I ask folks this question all the time on the podcast, and they have an answer typically, and I don't have an answer. There's no, because I understand how systemic racism works, there's nothing that they can do. Right? Because the answer would be stop being racist.
Yep.
And that's not realistic.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that they can do. There's nothing that they want to do. Right? So that's my answer.
I mean,
short and sweet.
I think it's powerful, and I think people need to understand it from that aspect, you know.
Yeah.
And I often think about it, you know, as we have our conversations off air about the work, you know, like, is there a point like where there's no Black educators in the public school system? And if that's the case, is that finally, where things will change, or does it even matter, because it is the ultimate question. It's like, how can you go into an institution that's been intended to oppress and intended to produce the outcomes that it produces, right, on a day-to-day basis, over and over again, year after year, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, right? It always is going to see BIPOC kids, Black and brown kids, as having deficiencies in what progress is, and also thus, like, reflecting on Black educators, right, who work with those kids.
Yeah, I know that some folks who are listening might say, like, well, that's not a problem in Philadelphia. That doesn't happen in Buffalo or in Detroit. It's like this, right?
Yep.
And that could be totally true. I don't teach or have not taught in those school districts. But what I will say is that for folks who are the one and only in their school, though, and have been the one and only in their school for a long, long time across this country, this is real.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the response of just move to Atlanta. All you gotta do is move to so on and so forth. It's not remedying the problem.
No.
Right.
Well,
we have. Go ahead.
And plus we got, like in our school district, we're trying to get people, Black folks, to move from Atlanta, from Philadelphia, from Detroit, from Birmingham, from New Orleans to Denver to teach kids here, because you don't have enough educators of color here.
Yeah. And good luck with that.
Right. I mean, I think so a couple of things kind of come to mind, with this, and I'm gonna sit in the tension of these two ideas, because these are two ideas that I have that are in direct conflict with each other. So on the one hand, systems are upheld by people, right? And so I think there are a lot of folks in education and beyond who look at these issues and say, well, these are systemic issues. There's nothing I can do. And it sort of lulls them into this state of inaction. Well, it's a system. It's a system. I can't do anything about it. And I think that I think that the way I think about it is like, so what are individuals doing every day to uphold these oppressive systems? But then the other thing I have is, since when is the education system in its current form like so invaluable that we can't conceive of an alternative, right?
Yeah.
It's like Louis Armstrong said back during the civil rights movement. And, Louis Armstrong had this reputation of being this joyful, fun entertainer. But when the bombing happened in Birmingham that killed those 4 little black girls, he said, if this is what happens in the United States of America, then to hell with the United States of America, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
mm-hmm.
so I've got this one thing that's like, if we have enough individuals within a system who refuse to continue upholding oppression, but on the other hand, why is the system something that we categorically and uncritically defend? Those are, and I don't have a resolution to those things. I think those are 2 things that are really in direct conflict for me. I'll let you know.
What's interesting about talking about school districts or school systems changing, and is when we speak in that way, it's as if school systems are not tied to other systems.
Yep.
Oh, that's
right?
great. That's a great point. That is such a great point.
Yes. Right. So there's no fixing the school to prison pipeline without fixing healthcare, without fixing housing, right? Because they're all tied together.
Food insecurity, homelessness, all of these things.
All those things. So me having 50 Black teachers join a school district that didn't have but 13 before is not solving any problem.
No.
Because these systems are tied together in a giant knot. And if you pull on one side of it, it just gets tighter somewhere else.
That's right.
Oh, that's a great metaphor.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I love that. I mean, just like Dead Press says, the same people who control the school system control the prison system and the whole social system ever since slavery.
Period.
So, that's there. All right, Asia. So you've moved on. You found liberation. You got yourself free. Tell the people. I mean, what are you doing?
Asia. Dr. Lyons still lives in capitalism, my friend.
Okay, well, okay. free from the education.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Education. Well, I mean, you doing it on your own
terms. That's a big set of chains to break, right?
That's the thing.
Yes.
So what are you doing now that you've left?
I love this meta piece where we don't act like we just have. We're like, what is Asia Lyons doing?
What are you doing? Who are the intelligent, debonair, handsome people that you might get to spend time with from time to time?
Sometimes virtually.
Virtually.
I guess I got to see Kevin in real life.
That's right.
Recently. So it's always good to see you all in real life, because I haven't seen Kevin in about 9 years.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Oh wow, for real?
It's been a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. Before my daughter was born. That's the last time I saw Kevin.
No, I seen you. I seen you since your daughter's been born.
When?
I've seen you. We've seen each other because I've seen your daughter. I've seen your daughter.
Oh, maybe it was it was Guffey. Was it Guffey?
Yes, probably yes. I think so.
We
don't
gotta
worry,
let
folks.
I
don't know what this is either. Audience.
Guffey Family Weekend. We'll talk about it some other time.
Okay, that's fair.
So what I'm doing now, different things. There's a couple of things, and the first one is obviously the exit interview, the podcast.
Yes.
The podcast came from the idea where when I left CCSD, Cherokee School District, I felt like Black teachers needed their story to be shared. And I remember emailing the superintendent at the time and asking him for an exit interview, right? I wanted him to understand like why I was leaving, whether he cared or not, he needed to hear it from my mouth. This is what's happening. And I emailed him, and of course I didn't get a response, and I waited and I emailed him again.
really surprising, shocking, even
shocking. Yeah, and so I kept emailing him until he responded, and I wrote down all the things I wanted to say about the ways that my administrator was extremely racist, and used her Black son or biracial son and her being a lesbian
that's in the playbook.
Let's talk about that.
That's in the playbook. Actually, on Two Dope Teachers, we have an interview dropping with Syra Rao where she talks exactly about that thing, about the playbook, the musical. Anyway, go ahead. My bad.
Oh, you're good. And so I went and I said what I had to say. And he gave we're here in Cherry Creek. We work on excellence and equity. Like, it's a recording of whatever. And I didn't expect for him to be moved by what I was saying or make any promise. And I said what I had to say. And walking out, I was like, this has to be more than just this.
Yeah.
Right. And this is how the exit interview. And I emailed or messaged you two, and I said, like, can we have a conversation? Actually, it was like, can I be in your show? And then when we were in like the break section, I was like, hey, I have an idea. And then here it is, right? And this is, like I said, our third season. We've had folks from all over the country to share their story. And so that's one of the things. The second is my consulting firm, Lions Educational Consulting. And I built that because I realized a couple of things. One, I don't like to be told what to do.
Yes.
Right. And the second is that I really wanted to see Black educators leave education and have some place to go if they chose entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Right. And so my firm, our services include helping to build programs through equity-centered design thinking, curriculum development, and coaching. And we've been in operation, and we being me and my team, since 2019. And that's been going fantastically. And then my newest hard work, which also stemmed out of my work, was the Black Educator Wellness Cohort. And that basically started, and we started our first sessions in October. And it was the idea, like, if you want to stay in education, how do we support that work, right? And so working with Eleanor Cahill from Resilient Futures, Dr. Cahill and I co-facilitate monthly cohort meetings and sessions with Black educators in the city. And we just have a good time, and we talk and we laugh and we share and we cry and we heal together.
Wow.
And then at the end, we'll have a retreat, and then we'll start our new cohort in the next school year. But so there's lots of ways that I hope that I'm showing that I'm giving back in some way to Black educators.
I think also you left one thing out. You got a PhD.
Well, I have an educational doctorate. I have an ED.
Oh, you're still doctor. And
yes.
So I think that's the other piece that is really fascinating to me, because you and I were laughing. Well, you were laughing. I was crying off mic on about, going through this doctoral program. But I think that that's something that you also gave to yourself. And you will be giving your learning and your knowledge. Like, you're going to get into spaces that no one else gets into because you have that credential. And so I think that, and you are AERA with everybody who's everyone, right, in educational research. And so those are incredible things. And so, Kevin, I think we can definitively say that maybe the best is yet to come for Dr. Asia Lyons. But she's living her best life right now.
I can't lie.
That's it. That's it.
I have Oh, go ahead, Kev.
Well, I don't know if you were going to ask this question, but just before we leave the exit interview, talk about we've been doing this is the third season, but I would love for you to just share your thoughts. We were talking before about kind of your feelings on sharing your story. And what the exit interview, it coming to fruition, what it means to you and the importance of it.
Oh, so we have different questions. I have one after that.
Okay.
So you go, and then I go, and then you go.
Yeah. So I think it's awesome, right? And it's awesome because I get to be in support of Black teachers who left teaching and just said, I don't care. I'm just going to leave. It doesn't matter. And just never, a lot of them never got a chance to share their story. Right. And so we get to, on this platform, share like those hardships and successes with an audience. Right. And it's not to say that folks are going to change their ways. Right. But it is to say, you don't get to say you didn't know.
That's right.
You don't get to say, oh, well, she just left and she must have just not liked teaching anymore. You don't get to say that, right? And
you have a way to understand this.
Yes.
If you choose to understand it this way, you all, Kevin and Asia, as you kind of engage this work, you can plant seeds, but you're not responsible for whether they get an appropriate amount of sunlight. You're not responsible for whether they get watered regularly and whether anyone takes their blossoming seriously. You can't control that.
Right.
That's right.
Right. And it's not, and my work is not dedicated to the audience. Anyway,
that's right.
It's dedicated to the teacher.
That's right.
The educator, the para, the family liaison, the administrator. That's who it's dedicated to. Yeah. Right. Just like for my story, it wasn't about the superintendent. It was about me and what I needed for my own healing. So that's a big piece of it. And I think, I don't know, so many folks who come on the show, they'll say at the end, and Kevin and I witnessed this so many times. We just saw this in our podcast episode with Nedra. Shout out to you, Nedra Hall.
Yeah.
Just like these tears of like, thank you so much. And I'm telling her, no, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for leaving a place that treated you like crap and going to thrive somewhere else. And then sharing that you did not dissolve and die. You thrived and you continue to thrive. Right. So that's pretty much it for that.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. One thing that is different from the first time that we crossed paths and the first time we started exploring not just your story, but the stories of other Black educators forced out of the classroom is that we're going through this thing that people like to call the Great Resignation, right? Teachers are leaving in droves. We know that over the last 35 years, Black and brown teachers have left teaching at a rate of triple of those of white teachers. And so we know that this is actually a long-term trend that the data doesn't lie about. And so now there's interest in, well, is there something else I can do besides be in the classroom? Is there something outside of K through 12? So what are some of the questions that people ask you? Because I feel like the natural thing when they come into contact with you and they learn your story is, well, could I do that? What are some of the questions you get and how do you address them?
Yeah, one of the questions I get is, people say, my resume just says third grade teacher.
Yeah.
And who wants to just, hire someone who's a third grade teacher? I don't have experience outside the classroom. This is all I've ever done. What can I do? And I always tell them the same thing. Go where the kids are.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Boys and Girls Clubs, Girls Inc., YMCAs, Big Brother, Big Sister. Yeah. You could think of all the YASPA. Shout out to YASPA.
Yep.
All these
the community
organizations,
centers, Project Voice, all these places.
Project Voice, exactly.
Yeah.
All these organizations who understand educators bring value, right? And to me, I call those like bridge. It's a bridge out of the classroom.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say like use it as a stepping stone and then move on, right? That's not fair to them. That's not fair to you.
Yeah.
But I will say, go where the kids are. Go where your impact is valued, right? That's important. Yeah. That's really important. That's one of the big things. People also ask me on the entrepreneurial end, like, how did you do it? How do you make it out here? All these things. And the main thing that I tell people, if you choose entrepreneurship, and I never convince people like that's what they should do, because it's not for everyone.
It's not for everybody. Yeah.
It's not, no, at all. I'll tell them, it's mindset. Right? Leaving teaching's mindset too, and entrepreneurship is mindset. If it's the 20th of the month, and that's when we got paid in CCSD, and you're just, oh, I wish, oh man, it was so good if you're there, or if you say something to yourself like, well, if this doesn't work out, I can just always go back, then don't start.
Yep.
Because you've left yourself a boat to get off the island.
Yeah.
If you're telling yourself, well, I'm just gonna get this a couple more months, and if it don't work out, I can always, then just don't even bother.
You have to be all in, and you have to not give yourself a way to just walk away from it easily or quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also like talking to people, and this is looking for work other places or working for yourself. You have to get out and like talk to folks and follow up. When people say, yeah, let's have lunch, stand right there. Okay, what day? Tuesday?
Yeah.
1 o'clock, right? LinkedIn has been my best friend, because that's for my business. Instagram and Facebook doesn't necessarily work in the ways that it could for other people.
For sure.
Yep.
But I love, follow up on people, checking in on folks. Like, it's connecting with people in this way that you probably didn't have to connect with adults when you taught, right? Yep. And for some people, it's very quick. Like, they get their projects going right away. They have enough connections as people find them, and they're doing work right away. And some people have to figure it out as they go, right? And all that's totally fine. So that's pretty much it. It's just the same things. Make sure you have like a positive mindset. Definitely read, I don't want to say books about business, but more books about mindset than anything. And just feel good about if you have an idea for an organization or a service that you want to provide and you change your mind, then it's totally fine. Just feel your way through and don't expect perfection in the beginning. So yeah.
Thank you for that.
There we go. There we go. Seeds of wisdom from the doctor, Asia Lyons.
The good doctor.
All right. Well, I mean, I think this is one of my favorite questions I get to ask anybody on any of the podcasts. Maybe other than the last question on Two Dope Teachers in the Mic.
I mean, that one's
the infamous question. This is our notorious question here. Asia, what's bringing you joy right now?
So many things.
Oh, love it.
First things first, I don't hate Mondays.
There we go.
Ooh.
Don't dread Mondays.
I don't hate Mondays either. I hate capitalism. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, this isn't about me though. This isn't about me.
Oh, it's fine. I don't hate Mondays. Also, my family, of course, always.
Yeah.
The Black Educator Wellness Cohort.
There we go.
Right? Like I get to just something, when you have something that you think of come to life in front of you, it's so dope. Like, this was a seed. This was just an idea. And then you see people, right? And then, of course, the exit interview, same thing. So many ideas have come and gone from my brain. If anyone's ever read Big Magic, it talks about that. But these particular ideas, I said, no, I'm going to show up and do these things. And it's just been so good, right? So I'm just in gratitude for all those things. And that's what's bringing me joy these days. My family, my work, my people, everything.
There you have it.
Love that. I love that. There we go. That is our interview with Dr. Asia Lyons. I am Kevin Adams. For my co-host, Gerardo Munoz, my guest
host. I'm the guest host.
Special guest host, special guest co-host, Space Ghost.
Coast to coast.
Lord have mercy.
No, this is what Asia has to deal with.
Yeah. See,
here.
this is. Yeah. Someone's got to be in charge, and
that's right. That's right. We need an adult in the room.
That's right.
And it's me. It's me.
It is. Well, and thanks for having me. Thanks for bringing me on for this conversation. It was so great to be a part of this conversation. And I never get tired of hearing your story, Asia. Never get tired of hearing it. It always lands really deeply. And I hope it lands deeply with everybody listening right now.
I'm ready for the movie. Right, for that last
Asia
scene.
Lyons, the movie. That's right.
The last scene, the last straw scene. That's it.
Yeah, the ID just toss in the trash. Yeah,
I think
this
is probably a good time to conclude this episode. So catch this episode on the Two Dope Teachers and a Mic feed, and follow us all everywhere on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Twitter, the Hellscape, and Facebook. And you can reach out to Lions Educational Consulting if you are looking for someone to do some powerful, beautiful work.
Thank you. Talk to y'all later.
Peace.